This presentation will discuss how authoritarian regimes use the internet for their own means of maintaining power. Key topics which will be discussed is the handling of internet in two different forms of government, the definition of the internet and what it has to offer humanity, pros and cons of controlling it, and what is lost when there is an overexerted control of how people can access or use it. When discussing internet use, what normally comes to mind is the seemingly boundless possibilities which arise from it, whether that be accessing scholarly articles for a school assignment, going onto social media to post a picture, looking up tutorials to learn a new skill, watching movies for leisure, etc. The list goes on. The internet is a virtual portal providing people with a great deal of information from virtually anywhere. While the first thing that may come to mind is its infinite uses, there has to be an understanding as to what it offers humanity as a whole. Since its introduction, the internet has allowed the accessibility of information to millions of people from all backgrounds to become more knowledgeable about the world around them, while as well bringing about a greater sense of connection and community of like-minded people, regardless of culture, background, and language barrier. Focusing not on any legal barriers which limit its possibilities and only on the good which comes from it, the internet can be defined as a vast and chaotic source of limitless information where people can communicate with one another and openly share their thoughts. With this definition in mind, it is a shame to see that there are places in this world which greatly limit people's use of it, manipulating it for control of power and suppression. The U.S.'s laissez-faire policy towards internet use is not shared throughout the world, especially in authoritarian countries where heavy censorship, regulation, and control of it is part of their methods to maintain power. An example of one of these countries being China. The U.S. and China have different methods in how they control internet use, so as such, both countries will be compared against one another to see the differences. Beginning with the topic of freedom of speech and censorship, the U.S. secures people's freedom of speech through the First Amendment of the Constitution, allowing a variety of different opinions to be voiced without fear of persecution or legal sanction. This protection of speech is crucial for the U.S., seeing as its diverse demographic needs for there to be a way in which they can allow themselves to speak their mind in an effort to be represented in the law. This allows for people to voice their criticisms on the government and gather in supporters to push for action. A historic example of this in the U.S.'s history is the Civil Rights Movement, where there was a mass movement around the country to break down the racist laws in an effort to desegregate America. With the introduction of the internet and it being given the same protection of rights such as print in the First Amendment, its role in all of this is simply being the medium for people to practice their rights. Moving on to China, the People's Republic of China is governed by the Communist Party of China, an authoritarian regime with a strong grip over its people's actions through the use of heavy surveillance, especially online. Unlike the US, where it's relatively free for people to publicize their criticisms of the government, only the very elite of China, such as its government leaders, can do so. Regular citizens who voice criticism or negative opinions of the Communist Party may suffer legal repercussions for doing so. Attempting to hide oneself by posting online is not an option. The government is able to efficiently track people's whereabouts on the web, restrict website access, and limit their search engine sources to certain content through the implementation of the Golden Shield Project, better known as the Great Firewall of China. This firewall, which blocks a lot of outside media content as well as any controversial information regarding the country, is as well backed up by artificial intelligence and cyber police keeping track of people's actions online, making sure to serve punishment to anyone who offers any negative criticisms about the Communist Party, even if it is done in a private chat. Not wanting outside ideas to influence its citizens and revolting and demanding a change within the government, China has restricted access to popular sites such as Google, YouTube, and Facebook, and instead created their Chinese counterparts such as Baidu, Youku, Tencent, and so on. An example of this can be seen in the following slide, where a video discussing Chinese application WeChat shows how the government uses it for their own purposes.
By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products that get the push of a social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people. Sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about, who you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. It's the combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal, all in one place. The problem is, all of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products that get the push of a social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people. Sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about, who you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. It's the combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal, all in one place. The problem is, all of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. So if you're not in China...
As can be seen, the Chinese people are heavily monitored, and with all the human rights violations which occur in China, it only makes sense to want to monitor them in an effort to keep the government in full control and power. There have been efforts made in the past for China to push for pro-democracy, only for its efforts to be savagely torn down, an example being that of the Tiananmen Square massacre. When protests from students and workers began forming against the government in an effort to demand more social freedom, civilians were shot down and/or imprisoned by armed troops sent from the government, with many survivors having to flee China in an effort to escape persecution. Human rights groups estimate the death toll being in the hundreds or thousands, yet no official statement was ever released from the government. In fact, no results appear on Chinese search engines for any information regarding the Tiananmen incident, and attempting to send any information or images on Chinese media apps or networks of the event is blocked or halted from ever being sent. This just goes to show how far the government is willing to go to make sure that they stay in power, so much so as to attempt to cover up the story as much as possible and make people forget about the incident by filtering the internet of any information regarding the massacre and blocking any efforts made to inform the people. And though the Tiananmen incident occurred 30 years ago, that's not to say that the Chinese people have let go of that yearn for democracy. The umbrella incident and recent protests in Hong Kong show proof that the people demand more social freedom and wish to keep as much of the democracy that they have, without the Communist Party infringing on it. Going back to the makeshift definition of the internet, it should be used to bridge gaps between people in this world and to share knowledge with one another. But in the hands of an inconspicuous, oppressive government, any effort to bring about democracy or social change is struck down. And this is not only applicable to China, it goes for all authoritarianist regimes which abuse the internet's influence to suppress its people and keep itself in power. Though some may argue that it is better for there to be tighter control as to how people access and use the web in order to avoid viewing insensitive content and abusing it for their own needs, it is not right either to massively regulate it, so much so that both information and people's lives are manipulated in a way to keep them from demanding change for the better. While some may argue that giving more freedom and allowing citizens to access the web may be just to bring about Western influence, there is no denying that the shared communication of people from around the world brings about ideas and new perspectives which can benefit society for the better, and wanting better should be something that everyone can have access to. It is people's rights to explore the internet as freely as they can, and as can be seen, imposing strict restrictions on how people can use or access it only closes them off from everyone else in the world and keeps them in fear of ever being able to envision a better way of life.